Somebody called me the Julia Childs. Who is that? Julia Childs of vegetable gardens. So I think maybe I better put on my apron.
Where's your glass of wine?
Yes, where's my glass of wine? I want to thank right off the bat, I want to thank, that's who, oh, Frank. Frank Borkat did my little PowerPoint thing. He and I worked together, we did this. And Bruce Hasakawa is going to do the one in the summer vegetables. That'll be in March. So I'm going to do this whole thing again for another type of planting. And I want to thank, too, some of you people gave me some feedback from last month's talk, which I appreciate. If anybody wants to tell me something like that again, we had, let me see, row covers. They were interested in the row cover bit. I did some explaining about microclimates in the county, and that was kind of enlightening for some people, because it relates to the planting dates, of course. The other one was onions. Somebody didn't know too much about onions, that they're day length sensitive, and that cutoff bulbing, now this is, we're talking about bulbing onions, storage onions. If you want nice big onions, which I'm going to have some pictures of, like this, you have to have a certain variety that bulb when the day length gets to where they need it. They vegetatively grow for a period of time until they make enough leaves to begin bulbing, to make storage. Did you know that the onion leaf is round and the leaf is flat? The leaf blade is flat? Okay. So those leaves that are round cover the bulb, see, as it begins to enlarge. Anyway, look it up on the web. It goes into detail. Vince and I worked on this new introduction for onions because it covers some other things that you might not be familiar with. Terms like, who had the question here just a little while ago about onions? Bulbing, not bulbing onions, scallions that are called bunching onions. They're in little clumps, and you just pick off the little ones around the edges and leave the clump, and it grows and grows all summer, winter, forever. You know, but you still have these little scallions around the outside you can pull off. Bunching onions. They're in the catalogs. So anyway, our website goes into these various kinds of onions. The other thing I wanted to talk about was Gail out there in the lobby is selling a book that I mentioned last month, Jevons. This is the original book, and it goes into the history of the biodynamic, French intensive, Alan Chadwick, Mollison, all these people that have come up with new techniques, supposedly new, of course they're thousands of years old, Chinese and Europeans have done this for years. But some of these ideas in here work very well in our area here because of our soils. So if you really ought to look at that book, it's really a terrific book. This one I've really treasured because it was the first one printed in '74. Wow. The new one is, I think, the 8th edition. So she has a few of them out there for sale. The other thing I I mentioned last month also was a soil thermometer, because I was telling you about certain plants, or seeds, when, let's see, where's mine? She couldn't find mine, because mine is made in England. It's a little thing like this. Comes in a little plastic tube, and you turn it out, and there's the thermometer, and the scale is a little different. So you put the tube on it like that. You've got a handle. And it's in centigrade and Fahrenheit. Mean in England they would do that, I think. And then, you know, when we talked about depth, if you don't have something to measure with, do you know that your first digit is, the first knuckle on your index finger is 1 inch? And the second one is 2 inches. So the packet says, plant 1 inch deep, 6 inches apart. There, you put your thumb right there at that knuckle, poke the seed down, you're down 1 inch. If it says plant 6 inches apart, you go like this. Measure from here to here, that's usually 6 inches. If you don't believe it, when you go home, get your little tape measure out and measure. Some of you guys with the big hands maybe might be different, but it's usually works that way. The other thing that I have here for, while we're on spacing, was this little thing that I made out of a piece of pegboard. The triangle has 10 inches across, 6 inches across. Oh, look at that. 6 inches. So if you go out there and you're going to plant these little guys 6 inches, there it is, but not even having this handy in your pocket. And this one was 8. 8, 6, 10. And of course half of those is half that. So if you do it with a pegboard, see, you have little holes that you can mark and everything. This is kind of a fun thing. You know where I saw this? In one of the old organic gardening magazines. Remember when it used to come out, there was a little thing about this pig, a little magazine, you remember? I used to have hundreds of those. So anyway, here's the soil thermometer, and she found Gail out there in front, I think it's about 11 bucks. She found a soil thermometer, and I suggest that if you want to learn more about your individual microclimate, that you start using it. I'll go into it later. Let me see. We're going to go on to our first slide here and see what we got. Order seeds early. Now there's a problem. Seed catalogs I collect all the time, and as long as they're free, so if you can get the website off of one of them and have them send you the current issue. Usually the back east catalogs come out, the new ones, in January. And so if you're ordering here for a fall garden and you want fall varieties, you're getting it out of the current season's summer catalog. So they don't have their new next year's introductions yet because they're going to come out in January. Very complicated. So anyway, you just have to take your choice and look through the catalogs, and I suggest using more than one. I like to have maybe a couple from the West Coast because their service is quicker for shipping. Also, their shipping fee might be less, although that's not necessarily so by region, because the East Coast, the one I really like with organic seed and heirloom varieties, is one called Baker Creek, and they don't, I think their shipping fee is $3.50 now for any size order.
Wow.
Usually, if you look at the order list in most of these catalogs, as your order goes up, the price of the shipping goes up. Like $7.50, $8, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So get more than one catalog. Compare varieties. They have different names. If anybody does any hybridizing in last year's introduction, this next year it's going to have a different name. So then how do you know what you bought last year? Unless that company is using the old name. But I mean, in another catalog might have the very same thing, but it's been upped a little bit, and so they give it a different name. So anyway, I suggest more than one catalog so you can do comparison stuff. Now this is garden preparation. Be sure you do your own compost if you have a place to do it. Make sure you do some. Very important. You need scads of this stuff. And this is a 3-bin throw together thing with old pallets. Now this was done years ago when you could just go behind Home Depot and pick up, 2 or 3 pallets out in the back there, but you can't do that anymore because the companies that bring their stuff in on the pallets want their pallets back. So they don't want you to just throw them out. So if you go some little place where maybe they only have 2 or 3 or 4, go in and ask if you could have your pallets. And as you can, whoops, wrong. As you can see, they have different, see the boards here going up and down, or the boards going across this way, and you see there's a board on the outside and there's a board on the inside. So you want to kind of pick and choose sometimes. There's one back there I probably did myself, has big wide boards on it. But any kind of a 3-bin setup that you want to make, I suggest doing. 1, you're making compost. 1, you're stockpiling dead stuff. And 1, you have finished compost that you've bagged up. It was finished and you want to start a new bin. When you have herbs that you're pruning during the summer, or you have plants that you're rotating and taking out. At the end of a season, you've got all these tomato plants you're getting rid of. Make sure that you save all that stuff, but you have to have a nitrogen source. So make sure that you have manure, blood meal, bone meal, whatever else you want to use, but you need a nitrogen source to get it started. And I recommend manure over the bagged stuff that they sell you. Yes?
Joyce, Vic said you should be very careful about saving tomato plants because of diseases.
Yes. Yeah, tomato plants, you have to make sure that they're not diseased. When you pull up a tomato plant, don't just pull it out of the ground. Take a fork, loosen the soil, lift it up so that you can actually lift the root ball up out of the soil. Make sure that you don't have galls on the roots. That's nematodes. And you don't want to leave those in the soil, those roots, and you don't want to compost it. Anything on the plant leaf that you aren't sure about, or you maybe know that has a problem, a bacterial or viral problem, don't compost it. Put it in the green waste. Take it to the dump. Don't put it in your compost. Grass clippings are nice if you don't use some kind of a weed control. If you, at one time, when I was doing a lot of composting and couldn't find enough green material to add to my dry stuff, I would ask the lawn guys to come over and bring their, big tarp full of grass clippings. But I'd always ask them first, when did you put weed control on this, or when have you last sprayed it for something or other? And they say, oh, we don't do that. We never do that. Okay, then I'll take your stuff. But if you use that, if they use that, then don't take their grass clippings, okay? Let's see, we got dead stuff, We got the compost bins, and went too fast. Here we're adding compost. See the little thing in the back there? Those little boxes that they call compost bins. They don't make enough. You know, they're too small to make enough compost. I mean, you need lots of it. Windrows. And so we add, when we're adding, I add bone meal if it's needed. Sometimes a little blood meal, gypsum, depending on what your soil test might recommend. You always need organic matter though. So do that. Make sure that you take care of your soil first. You know, that's one of the old adages about organic gardening was feed the soil, not the plant. So then we have, the next thing is making your beds and putting on some kind of an irrigation system. Well, I'm big on drip because as you can see on a nice 4-foot wide bed here, this happens to be Hardy tape. I don't even know if they make it anymore. This one up here is that Uzi hose, you know? Soaker hose. And this one here is that little skinny tube that's pressure compensated also. So was the tape. This was the thing that first came out, and it was pressure compensated, which was good because if you use this kind of stuff, sometimes it's a lot of water comes out at the head but not down at the low end. So, or the other way around, yeah. If there's any kind of a slope whatsoever, the far end will have more water than the head. Okay? Right? So anyway, when you get your irrigation system set up like this, turn it on, and before you plant, do anything, just turn it on and check the water pattern. See, like that's what I'm doing right there. Checking how close the water. If you leave it on 1 gallon per hour? 1 gallon per hour, yeah. Most of these tapes are. However, you can buy other. Here we have something that maybe has to be permanently in the line though. And I don't think I showed that up there. I think there is right up there. See that little thing up there? That's a pressure regulator. And that's this. This is the filter. It was in the line. Well, let's see, where was the line? This must have been on the ground. Like that. Yeah, here. It was up against the fence. Like this. And here was the shut-off valve for the whole thing. So here's the pressure regulator. Here's the filter. And you think, well, I'm on city water. I don't need a filter. It's all filtered. But this, if you get a break in the line somewhere, out in your yard somewhere, and you get dirt in the line, this is going to plug up your drip system. So this thing comes apart like this, and you check this every year or every season before you start up again. And there is a little filter. And I can see it's got little fuzzies on it already from something. I forgot to check it. That's on the outside though. So then you take this out and you wash it, swish it up and down. Make sure there's nothing stuck inside. It's not dirty. And then you put it back in here, hook it up again. And then every once in a while, just to check and see that there hasn't been a bug or something that got into it, you turn this little valve and it'll squirt water out, blow anything out, you know, like a bug got in there or something. So you do that. So this is a good set. This is for a permanent setup. Okay? And you can go off of this onto all the heads of the bed. Let's see if we've got a picture. There. The bed's all ready to be planted. Weather the day before planting. Have the row cover and hoops ready. Plant, water bed. And the reason we do this by the 1st of October around here is because we still have warm soil, so the little guys take off. Zoom! The soil is warm, the nights are getting a little bit cooler, and the days are not so hot. So we're going into the end of November when we get our first rain, usually. Our first rain season starts about mid to end of November. So your little plants now have had, say, about four to 5 weeks, see, of growing from this stage right here to something that they can sustain themselves then for the winter. And then I use row covers. Now the reason for the row covers, oh here, yeah, if all else fails, use a raised bed box. One thing I want to make about these, this is for wheelchair or walker people that can't sit or bend. I mean, they can't bend over for a ground surface bed. If you're in a wheelchair, though, this has to be a certain distance so that they can get their knees up underneath there and get up to it, up to the edge. I have a handout on that in case anybody's interested. The other thing I want to make sure is that you have enough depth. Now this is a 2 by 6, I think, right here. And I think there must, it looks like there's 3 of them. Does it look like there's 3 of them?
Yes.
1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. So that'd be 18 inches deep. And that's about as much, I mean, that's probably as much as you can get on a raised box on legs. You can do it on the ground level, a raised bed, and put gopher wire underneath on the bottom of it, if you have the gopher problem, and then put a cap even across the top here so that you can sit down, you know, on the edge of it. I have some friends that have those kind of beds. They also make them out of concrete blocks and then put a board across the concrete blocks for a cap so that they can sit on and work in their beds. They're ground level, made with, I think, 3 high concrete blocks. 3 high. And then, of course, you have to fill them with soil. And that's where your compost and your amended soil comes in. You can dig out the aisles, out and use that soil, amend it, add compost to it, or you can bring in some stuff from some other place. I'm always leery about that, introducing stuff from the landfill especially, but whatever. A1 Soils has something that they call composted soils. If you know where their field is, go out there and check it out. See what it looks like. They're composted soil that they sell by the yard. Go out and take a handful of it. Take a little pot over there, fill it up with what they want to sell you. Take it home, put some radish seeds on it, and see how they grow. So, here we go. Here's all kinds of little things. Now, last month, I brought a tray that looked kind of like this, with all these little seedlings. Like that. And out of that, I went to this. See? So I picked those little things out with a plastic fork, chopstick, whatever little tool you want to use. You can find something in the kitchen. Plastic forks are good. And then you just take these little things out of there, Separate them. Always hold on to these things by the leaves. Never pinch them by the stem. Just the pressure of your fingers will upset their vascular system. So make sure that when you do this, bring my little tool. Slide it down in there. Look. Lift them up and then hold them like this, see? And look at, there's the roots coming clear out here. And then you just shake these apart like that. And there, I've got a little lettuce plant. Hold it by the top like this, by its ears. And that little thing is 1 inch above ground. And the root is 1.5 inches below the ground. Usually they're twice the length, the root is usually twice the length of the top. So here you got your little plant and you're holding it by its ears, and then you take your little dibble of some kind, poke it in there, make a hole. I don't have a dibble. Oh, maybe I do have a dibble. Where's my dibble? Well, anyway, poke a little hole in there, and then gently lower this down into the hole. And they always say, do not J-root. Do not J-root. You know what that means? No. Don't push it so far that the darn little root goes back up again. So just make the hole long enough so that you can put this right down the hole. Watch what you're doing. And just gently pull the soil to the stem. And then don't push down on it. Then when you water every one individually again. The water will settle up against all those little side roots and make it nice and cozy. So, put it down the hole, push the dirt up to the stem, and then water it in, and it'll be set. Okay?
Joyce,
Uh-huh.
when you water it, do you just kind of, I mean, how would you water it? Like,
Just very little
lightly,
dribble. A little dribble,
like a
dribble,
mist?
dribble. Something like this. I use this all the time because when they get to be like this, I put fish emulsion in here. About a half a teaspoon of fish emulsion in this much water. And I squirt them. And I get right down in there sometimes if they're dry on the surface. This will make, if you have one of these, it makes a little spray or it makes a straight stream. You don't usually want to make a strong, straight seed, you know, because it digs a hole. See, so you want a little spray kind of thing. So you just gently spray each one so that they're all settled in, okay? You can use this with fertilizer, or you can just use it with water. I have a hose that I turn on, just barely turn it on, and it just dribbles. Because you don't want to wash these things out or bury them. Yes, sir?
Why do you shake the dirt off the plant before you plant?
Because I want to see how long the root is, really. It doesn't hurt it at all. Because you're immediately putting it back into wet soil. Doesn't hurt it a bit. That's the way I do all of these. See? They're just as happy as can be. Don't go off and leave them. You know. And once you start taking them out of a bin like this, you usually aren't using all at one time. So I just kind of gently press the soil back a little bit, like where I pull these out here. Just push the soil back around the stems, water it again so that the soil settles around the root. And they're just happy, they just keep going on their own, they're all right. It depends on how you're handling things, you know. Here's a little thing. This is one of those throwaway produce boxes, you know. I get mushrooms or something in these. I forgot what this.
strawberries.
Strawberries, is that what it is? But they have, look, they have drainage hole, they have slits. They have a little cover to keep the humidity in. Don't throw these away. These are terrific. Little planting things. Look. You can put, you know, just a pinch of broccolis. They'll all germinate in about 5 days in a thing like this.
It's a mini greenhouse.
Yeah. And just don't put it in the sun. If you close the lid, don't put it in the sun because you'll bake them in there. It'll get hot in there, you know, just like the closed car. So, then we have this, see? Here are my broccoli plants. This is Romanesco broccoli. We're gonna have a picture in a minute. But you see, these were, I think these took, let's see, these were potted up 9/28. So when you make a little tag, you know what this is? Venetian blinds. An old Venetian blind. These make the best tags. This, I put the name on there, the variety, and the date that I either seeded it, if I were seeding, or the date that I TP. Okay, transplants. And then I know exactly how many days it's going to take. You add all this stuff up, you find out that, oh gosh, how long have I been handling these darn things? Where did we do this?
Yep.
Up. Stop. "21 days, 28 days, 65 days. Tomatoes, 4.5 months, because you're starting them back in January on a hot bat, in the middle of January. 21 days, 35, and then 80 days later you got your first tomato, somewhere in June, maybe, if you started them in January. And you live back, not here on the coast, but back farther. Oh, I make it go down.
Bottom one.
Oh. Okay, so here we go. See? That's pretty self-explanatory, huh?
Joyce, do you use grow lights?
Only in the summer stuff, where I do start in January, February. Yes.
Is there an advantage to planting them in flats as opposed to just directly seeding it into the 6-packs?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, because when you put them in a 6-pack like this, how many seeds are you gonna put?
6.
6?
Or 12,
In each little compartment?
depending on.
And then you're gonna have 12 little sprouts come up in each one compartment?
So it's
Then you're gonna
spaced.
have to separate them and put them out into more 6-packs. You can't leave 6 little seedlings all clumped up and nothing any bigger than that.
But you put 1 or 2 per.
But if you do that, you see, thinking like, if I put 2 seeds, one of them will germinate. Not necessarily. So, I've done this. I've tried 3 seeds, maybe 1 comes up. Or maybe 3 come up.
Okay. So you have better control over.
Yeah. Yeah, it's the control, yeah. And this, this right here is the best way to do this. Let me show you this. I think last month I showed you this tray. You can find one of these at the nursery. See, this is a good propagating tray, because you can just put a piece of newspaper in the bottom of it to hold the soil from falling out the bottom. Don't use the ones that they carry the 6-packs around. Somebody told me this is called a propagating tray. Is that guy here? No. There's another tray that has big 1-inch squares, you know, in it, and they carry the 6-packs around, and they're wobbly and they're not any good for propagating. So just put a piece of newspaper across here, fill it up with this good potting soil. I particularly like this brand because it's finer, and I mix perlite with it. Fill the tray up, pack it down with a little piece of 2x4, pack it down, water it well, mark little rows on it, and have enough of the little tags that you're going to put, you know, boop, 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 boop. Every little row is going to have a tag with a name on it, because I'm going to do one of kale, one of broccoli, one of whatever. So, and make sure you put the date that you did this, the seeding date. So then you have an idea of how long it takes the kale to germinate compared to something else. And if you're keeping notes on this, which you should be doing, little notebook, then you have a better idea of what's going on. So, let's see, we gotta put this one back here. And this go in here. Now, our next step is what? What is our next step? Where's my, oh, here it is. Oh, I was going to show you this. This is Territorial Seeds catalog, but this is the kale page. And we, Frank and I tried to find this, if we could put this on the slides, because it's so pretty. They have all the different kinds of kale, colors and forms and shapes and names, prices, the whole schmear. And these are so ornamental. You know, kale's a big deal now. Kale chips, you know, kale stir fry, kale this, that, and the other thing. I even saw something like some kind of a tart made with kale. But, so, we got a big garden. This was something that I did for a man in Santee who was a farmer's market grower. And you know, some of these, he's small, he only had an acre of ground in Santee. And he was on a wonderful well. He had a terrific well. And the soil was pretty good. And so he hired me 2 years to do his seeding so that we could, he would always have something every single week to take to 2 different markets. So this is the way it turned out. I was doing something like crazy. And here we are. Now see, here's the little box here with the plants in it, see? See what stage they're in? And we're now, well, this one looks like a bigger one. But now we're putting what would be here into here, up against your drip tape, see? Now, here comes this bit. And I really encourage using this in the wintertime especially. Because, as you can see, I had these out there on the patio, and I have these at a person's home where he feeds the birds. He has bird hangers, bird feeders hanging everywhere. And so they found my seedlings. It ate the tops of them off, the leaves. Look. They're supposed to be like that. So I went over there a couple of days, you know, and covered the whole schmear up. But by that time, I've lost time. I've lost weeks. See? So when you even put them out in the garden at this stage, you're going to have to do something about keeping them covered. It retains the heat. It makes a little kind of a microclimate under there. Keeps the surface from drying out too fast. It increases the daytime temperature. It keeps the nighttime temperatures modified so they don't go, you know, down. Pest control, insect, birds, etc. Any kind of a light frost. I let my broccoli grow up until, in the tunnel, until it almost reaches the top of the tunnel underneath. And then I take it off because by that time, broccoli leaves have hardened off, the mature leaf has hardened off. The white butterfly doesn't lay eggs on the mature leaves, only on the young, tender, center growth, or in the bud. So then when the leaf, you know, when the egg hatches, out comes that worm that eats the holes in the leaves and eats the broccoli buds out. So, insect-borne diseases also, and hard rain and hail. I've been, when I had that teaching garden over at Cuyamaca College, out in the field, I went over there one day, one early morning after we'd had a frost, we had a warning. And I went out there and the row covers were just like boards. They were on, you know, on the wire, on the tunnel, but they were just as hard as they could be, frost, but everything underneath was just fine. All I did was take the hose and sprinkle the row cover and it melted the frost, and that was it. Then I opened up the tunnels and the plants were just fine. So they were just protected just enough. It really depends on how long the frost lasts, you know, and how low it goes. Well, over there, we put out thermometers to check, and it got down to 25. But maybe it only got down there for 10 minutes, 5 minutes. You know, you don't know. I didn't have it set up that way. But anyway, that row cover protects just enough to keep everything from really being damaged by these things. And hard rain, of course, you know, we get a really blowing hard storm and it can knock your little plants over. So, here we go. Now a lot of times they'll talk about putting the row cover on the surface of the soil, like this. But you can see right under here, see the green? There's a little green, you can see the plants are coming up. So when you put this stuff on the ground like this, you have to leave wrinkles in it. You have to leave enough slack so that when the plants start pushing up, they aren't going to be trapped and have bent necks, you know. So I recommend this only for certain kinds of plants. Maybe root crops, maybe. Carrots, it would be good, it's good on carrots. Otherwise, I do this with, here are the tunnels. This, I brought this piece, I didn't have this last time, but this is a piece of 9-gauge wire. You can get this as small spools over at Home Depot. You want 9-gauge. It's really springy. Comes in a small roll, about that big around. And you take one end of it and you stand on the roll. You pull this wire up until it gets to the top of your head. And then you have somebody cut it off down there with a big wire cutter. And that makes about 6 foot. Oops. And that's enough to go across a 4-foot bed. And you have to have enough, you see, that you can push down into the ground. You can feel here, right here is where it's been in the ground because it's rusty. See? So you've got to have enough to push down in the ground, which would make a tunnel about that high, see? Or if you made the hoop a little bit higher, you could have a tunnel about that high. And that's big enough, see, for most broccoli, cauliflower, cabbages. You don't want the leaves to come up underneath the row cover. It's going to be on this. See? Put the row cover over it. Somebody want to help me? Hang on to this one down here. Oh, here it is. Rubber band. Rubber band. There. Now, you see how wide this is? See, this will take this plus going down to the ground, see, where you have to either put a rock or board or dirt or something on it. And then we go along in the middle. We have a clothespin, one here, down here at the end, and one over there at the corner, see? And that holds it, and you want it tight. You don't want any slack in it. Because as soon as you do, it starts flapping like this in the wind. And then it'll wear across right here where it's on the hoop. So you don't want that to happen. You want to keep this tight all the time and keep enough. Let's put this like this. Put it this side. You want to have enough over the end of your thing. And we had some more. Whoop.
Where do you get that white fabric?
You can get this out of the catalogs. So you want to have this pulled this clear down to the ground and bring it together like this, you know, and close it off. Because you've got to close the ends off, otherwise the critters will get back in there, see? You need to put a rock on it or, huh?
Will critters eat through it?
No, no. As a matter of fact, rabbits, ground squirrels,
Raccoon.
well, I think raccoons would probably.
And rats?
No, I've never had ground squirrels or roof rats. I've never had anything like that getting it. I don't know, they seem to be wary of it. And it's something new. And if, once they do find it though, forget it, because they know it. You know, they put it in their little computer.
Do you think chickens would stay out of it?
Huh?
Would chickens stay out of it?
Oh yeah, chickens would. Oh yeah, chickens would. So, 9-gauge wire, and I like this because it's stiff enough, strong enough, and you can use these forever. You know, yeah.
Joyce, what's the name of the white fabric when we go to the counter?
This one is Remade, R-E-E-M-Y. Now, the catalogs, Peaceful Valley Farms up in Willits, California, has it in small packages. Usually it comes, I think, 64 inches wide by 5, 10, 15, 20, 50 feet long. Whatever you want to buy. Let me see, I thought I had it marked here. I thought I had it marked here.
You use this multiple seasons, Joyce?
Yes. Yeah, that's one thing about this, is if you don't use dirt on the edges of it to hold it down. I used a little 1x2 board all along. I turned the edge of the material over, make 3 little turns on it. Lay the board out, lay this 10, if you can find a piece of old molding, it's maybe, however length your bed is, like 10-foot bed or 20-foot bed, find a piece of molding that's the full length. Lay it on the ground, fold the edge of the material over, lay it along the board and staple it. And then, when you put it over the hoops, you can just go up to the bed, lift the whole thing up, it's stapled to the board, slides over on the other side, you got the whole thing open for you. For inspection, fertilizing, whatever you want to do. When you want to cover, you just go over there the other side, bring it up, it slides right down and bang, right on the ground. All nice and straight. And if you want to keep it, you can put a rock on that, on one end, at either end of it, so that some little critter doesn't try to push under the board, you know. But it's easy to handle. You're out there every day, hopefully, inspecting something. You know, you have to check. Don't think that just because you have this under a tunnel that it's going to be perfectly okay. Because once an aphid or a white butterfly gets in there while you've had that darn thing open and lays eggs on your leaves, and then you close them up inside the tunnel, like smorgasbord by a buffet. There they are under there, see? So you've got to open this up at least every 5 days, check everything, you know, maybe it's time to fertilize. I use fish emulsion, diluted. I use a cottage cheese carton. When they're young like this, probably at least once a week. I make it in one of those big buckets, fish emulsion. Follow the direction, I think 5 tablespoons per gallon. I use probably 3 or 4 instead, because I do it on a 5-day basis. I just mix it up in the bucket, stir it up real good, keep it stirred, take a little cottage cheese carton, and give every little plant that drink. And they just take off like crazy, see? Now, one thing about planting these winter things like this, like broccoli, cabbage, cauliflower, all those brassicas, make sure that you use the space wisely. You can interplant a crop like this when they're young. You can have lettuce, all kinds of lettuce, all kinds of greens. And because you're staggering, actually, these plants get fairly large. So if you stagger the planting into a triangle, here, 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 you've got place here for lettuce. You've got place here for a lettuce. You've got place here for a lettuce. See? So use that bed to its maximum. Use a quick maturing leafy crop with a long maturing crop. By the time the lettuce is ready to come out, these will be almost touching. See, so you've got 2 crops off of that piece of land. Any questions? Where's my hanky doodle? There it is. So, we go on. Try something new. This is what we call a spreadsheet. And if you really want, I love to do this kind of stuff. Not everybody does, but when I'm trying something new, I like to make a spreadsheet. And I have a sample of this if anybody wants to take a copy off of it. The headings up there are what you want. Variety name, the date it was seeded, the date it was transplanted, the date in the field, the soil temperature. Aha! 70 degrees at 6 inches. That's just perfect. Supplier. See? 2 different companies carry the same thing. The maturity date, 48 days. So, when I go back here and figure out when it was seeded and how many days it took before I could harvest it, this is what I did for the farmer's market grower, because we had to have maturing plants every single week in enough of a volume to supply his customers. So that's why this is kind of an interesting thing to do, because you actually know in your microclimate exactly how many days, maturity dates it takes. Not what it says on the catalog or on the packet, but how many days it actually takes you. And depending on the date you started, see, this is warm, look at this, July, August, September. This is our hottest months, you see. But he had a shade house, and he had a greenhouse. They were very small, but the shade house was just fine. It was open, airy, on big benches, and it just gave enough shade so that it wasn't broiling hot in July, August, and September. And so we started all these little plants, constantly starting, seeding, transplanting, putting in the ground. So that at 48 days, he was ready to harvest. See? So, and then here, hardened off in the shade 2 weeks, fast, takes heat. Easy birds eat So the birds could get in there. So anyway, this is the idea though of doing a spreadsheet. And then you can list other things. So if you'd like to, this is kind of, it's wonderful if you want to get into this in a big garden way, is to have a spread. You learn so much about your own microclimate and the variability between seasons. One year can be altogether different than the next year because of the climate, something, you know, just going haywire.